What's up? It's Tom. Thanks for being here. We are going to eventually discuss Pablo López and the big injury. But first, I want to talk about the Twins opening their spring schedule tonight against the Golden Gophers. It was just wonderful to watch some baseball in February, period. But some fun prospects involved in that game, including Walker Jenkins, who got a hit and then probably gave the entire coaching staff a heart attack late in the game when he dove for a ball in center field that he got a terrible break on. I'm sure somebody's going to set him aside and be like, listen, kid, when we're literally playing a college team, please, for the love of God, don't leave your feet under any circumstances at all. Again, just great to see baseball being played. And, I think a lot of people are going to dismiss the fact that the Twins completely dominated the Gophers. But I've been watching this little Olympic, I think it's Olympics. I'm not sure. It's new to me. A new event. I don't know if you've heard about this. And, from what I've gathered is that the gold is like the best you can do. So the Twins beat the Golden I think that's like the Golden Gophers, right? I think this is a big deal. I think this is setting the tone and championship. We have to talk about Pablo López. Obviously, this is not breaking news, but I honestly couldn't even bring myself to put out a full reaction to this in the moment because it was just such a gut punch. The first day he's throwing in camp, just instantly having your ace taken away from you is such a crushing blow. But, again, removed from it a little bit, obviously it's still a gut punch. But some silver linings, that might be too bright. I put there, maybe this is at best tinfoil linings. There are still 7 legit rotation options for the Twins. That's a better situation than most years where if you took out the Twins' top starting pitcher. The Twins likely have insurance on Pablo's contract I put down there. I think that's a really uncovered territory. That's not something I know a ton about. I know that teams take out insurance on some of their highest paid players. I think it's probably typically more close to 70% after doing some additional research since I put this deck together. Sometimes it's as low as 50%, but that would be, over $10 million that the Twins should be able to recoup. Obviously, no one cares about the Pohlad pocketbooks, and if they just pocket even more money, I could see that happening. But maybe this does open up new avenues. And another potentially tinfoil lining, at least this happened early? ? There's never a good time for something like this to happen, but the Twins do now have time to possibly react to this and adjust as opposed to if this happened in May. There's not much you can do at that point. Taking a look at that rotation, again, 7 legit options. I just ordered these in order of career MLB starts. Bailey Ober has 1 more than Joe Ryan. I think obviously Joe Ryan becomes the ace now, but there's some bragging rights for Bailey Ober. I don't think people understand Taj Bradley as a 24-year-old has 73 MLB starts under his belt, quite a bit more than Simeon Woods Richardson. He's been in the majors for quite a while. Zebby Matthews and David Festa, have, about, 5 months worth, maybe 4 months worth of MLB experience. And then Mick Abel has 8 starts as well. We saw him really shine in his final start of the season against his former organization, the Phillies. There's also prospects who haven't debuted yet: Andrew Morris, Connor Prelip, John Klein, Kendry Rojas, and some others. So, yes, Pablo López was the ace of the team. Taking out any one of your best players is going to be a challenging thing to recover from. But this Twins team is uniquely suited to kind of weather this storm, I think. And, honestly, they need to figure out, what Zebby Matthews, David Festa, Mick Abel can do and move forward from there. I'm not going to totally go galaxy brain and be like, oh, it's good that Pablo López got hurt. No, we can figure out what these guys can do. We can't go that far. Just bring it back to reality here. But, it's that's not the worst thing in the world to have some more opportunities for those guys. The bullpen options. That's kind of a thing that that I do think, in a weird way, I actually think this hurts the bullpen more. In a weird, that's probably a galaxy brain take. But give me a sec here. My assumption was there might be two potential starting rotation converts to go to the bullpen, and like if you were to stick, let's just say Abel and Festa into the bullpen, all of a sudden, you never know how guys are going to adjust to the bullpen. Some guys just click right away. Some guys take a little bit of time. But that would seriously raise the ceiling to the bullpen if you stuck a couple guys like that in there. Now with Pablo out, you're going to want to keep more guys in the rotation. But here's a look at some of the guys in camp and how experienced they are in the bullpen. The players in bold are on the 40-man roster. The players in italics are non-roster invitees, not on the 40-man. But we're going to talk about this in a sec, but I'm anticipating there's a really good chance for at least one pitcher not on the 40-man roster to make the opening day roster. So it's not like the Twins are backed into a corner with a bullpen in terms of like, being forced to, let's hit the panic button and Connor Prielipp, you go out there. We need somebody to be a potential savior. Get out there, or, turning toward any other prospects to try to save the bullpen. They do have plenty of bullpen options. Now, options and actually, plus options are two different things, to be honest. But they have options. That's better than not having options. This is a possible bullpen I put together. I think those top 6 guys are complete locks as long as they're healthy. And yes, I would even include Orzi in there. I think he's kind of being undersold a little bit by Twins fans. I think he's much more interesting than some people are giving him credit for. I would consider him a lock if healthy. And then for the final 2 spots, I put one converted starter. I still think you can convert one starter. That would give you, of that trio, somebody takes the 5th spot, somebody goes to the bullpen, and somebody goes to St. Paul. And you would have that guy in St. Paul waiting in the wings. So you'd have a 6th starter there. And then also, again, you have the Morris, you have the Prielipps, also back waiting in the wings in St. Paul too. So it's not like if you put one of the guys in the bullpen, you are completely pulling the rug out from your starting pitching depth. Even without Pablo, I would probably lean toward David Festa being the guy. But, we'll see what happens in spring. And then maybe the 8th spot is a non-roster invitee, maybe Liam Hendricks. He hasn't looked good in a long time, but a guy who's kind of got some fire under him. That would be certainly a great story. Andrew Chafin is, again, like we saw in the previous slide, the most experienced MLB reliever in camp right now, left-hander. Julian Merriweather is another guy he's probably the guy who is closest to his last good season in the bullpen. So he's another non-roster invitee I would say kind of keep an eye out for in spring. That is a far cry from like the, Duran, Jax, Varland, Stewart bullpens. And again, I think the Pablo injury hurts this unit every bit as much as it does the rotation. But there's an avenue here for bullpens are really hard to predict. And, getting Banda was a nice addition. The bullpen is oddly left-handed all of a sudden. We were coming into most of the offseason thinking, well, is Cody Funderburk going to be like the number 1 lefty? And now with Rogers and Banda in there, it's actually a very left-handed bullpen. That might work against Andrew Chafin, actually. But anyway, moving on. The questions in the wake of the Pablo Lopez injury. And this is the things I want to hear from you from. Because I think this is kind of a fun part of like following any sports team, is sort of playing these scenarios and thinking about how you would proceed. One of the options is that the Twins could just sign a free agent starting pitcher. There are some guys, Lucas Giolito, Zach Littell. Those are, not top of, we're not saying top of the rotation type guys, but those are legit MLB starters who are still out there on the free agent market. That's certainly an option. I'm never going to be against adding more talent and especially spending more money to do so. That's all it takes. If you wanted to bring in Lucas Giolito or Zach Littell, all it's going to take is money. That's always a good thing from my perspective, pretty much. But again, like, there are already 7 legitimate MLB starting pitching options who've debuted, and I really think Andrew Morris is ready for an audition, at least a cup of coffee. So do the Twins really need more options in the rotation? I don't really think so. Now, of course, somebody else could go down with a serious injury. So any depth is always useful. But I don't know that Lucas Giolito or Zach Littell, that I would prefer to go with them over a Zebby Matthews or over a Mick Abel, to be completely honest. So, another option, hey, what about the reliever? If you're going to roll with that starting rotation, well, the bullpen doesn't look great in that scenario. There are some guys, Danny Coulomb, Justin Wilson, Michael Kopech were a few of the free agents that stood out to me. With Coulomb, again, the Twins' bullpen, as it projects, is already very left-handed, so he's not a great fit. Justin Wilson is entering his age 38 season and will need to be very carefully managed as far as pitching on back-to-back days or even his pitch count. Getting up there in age, you can't ride him like a Louis Varland, let's say. And then Michael Kopech, I mean, he's younger and his arm talent is amazing, but that guy cannot stay on the mound. And then he cannot wrangle his command for more than like a month at a time. He could be a very exciting addition in terms of a guy you could dream on being the best reliever in the bullpen, but at the same time, he could be just a complete waste of money, waste of time, complete disaster. So if the Twins sign him, I'm not going to be like, oh, what a dumb idea. I would understand it, but I can see the argument to that's a potential dumpster fire we just don't even want to touch. And then again, like I was kind of saying with the rotation, like, do any of those free agent options actually solve any problems? Like we were pointing out, these aren't great fits. We have a lefty that we're with a bullpen kind of packed with lefties already. We have an older reliever who has been successful, but they're about the same level. And then Michael Kopech, like if you get the A level Michael Kopech, yeah, that definitely solves problems, but like he has been all over the report card and then also in the nurse's office quite a bit. So, it's not really clear to me that going the free agent route really would solve anything. Definitely adds depth, and that is always helpful. The other thing that's a little bit harder to analyze is, could they make a trade? But what can the Twins offer in a trade? Prospects? You just traded a bunch of established major leaguers for prospects. So it'd be really odd to then turn around and then trade prospects for major leaguers. Trevor Larnach, I don't get why the Twins tendered Trevor Larnach. I've been talking about, and a lot of people have, talking about potentially trading him all offseason. I don't know what you can get for him, but usually it doesn't take a ton to get like an Eric Orsi type reliever. And I do think that would be helpful to get a guy like that, and especially a guy like that who has options. Another option would be to take on salary. Tom Pohlad's been kind of talking a big game about wanting to compete and all this. And again, the Twins, I'm assuming, they don't really make this stuff public, but I'm assuming the Twins had some kind of insurance policy on Pablo Lopez that's going to help them recover some of that money, and then therefore, hopefully, create an avenue where they could take on some salary at least. That's kind of a tricky thing to try to analyze. Maybe sometime later on in spring, we'll try to identify some players who might be on the fringes of another team's 26-man roster, kind of making more than a team would like to pay them, might become available. If you take on more salary, that wouldn't be, it seems like an odd thing to try to think of from a Twins fan perspective, that the Twins would be the ones taking on a salary. But, again, we have a different scenario, and we're not talking about, they're not taking $20 million on or something like that, but that could be a way they could improve the roster. So, I mean, there's no way else to put it. It's such a sucky way to open things up. Just instantly Pablo Lopez is gone all year. That's just a knockout blow. But, there are options. Luckily, the starting pitching depth is there. And it'll be interesting, at the very least, it'll be interesting to see how they play things from here. Moving forward, again, we're going to have some fun. I thought about putting the more fun stuff first. We can't do it. We can't pretend not to talk about Pablo Lopez on this channel. So, 2026 Sire of Fort Myers. Hear ye, 'tis time. Spring training started today. Again, Twins beating the Golden, I think that means they're the best team in the world, the Golden Gophers, right? Reminder on the Sire of Fort Myers, any player who has either not made their Major League debut or is not on the 40-man roster, regardless of MLB time in that scenario, is eligible for Sire of Fort Myers, So, for example, Tristan Gray is a player on the Twins 40-man roster with MLB experience. He is not eligible, even though he's kind of a fringe roster guy. He's not eligible. But Gio Urshela, former Twin, who's back in camp, is eligible since he is a non-roster invitee. He's got tons of MLB experience, but is not on the 40-man roster. These rules were established in the ancient scrolls uncovered beneath Hammond Stadium when it was first built. So I didn't make these up. No, these are not made up by man. The baseball gods put them in the dirt themselves. So, if you've got a bone to pick, take it up with them. So the previous winners of the award, Ryan Lamar, of course, superstar Lamar, hero of Puerto Rico, Sire of Fort Myers. Ryan Harper, the man with the comet curveball. In 2020, of course, that was the only way the Sire of Fort Myers could be defeated was a global pandemic. 2021, Derek Law out of the bullpen. Joan Duran, the first prospect ever to win Sire of Fort Myers in 2022. Willie Castro, perhaps the most iconic Sire of Fort Myers of all time in 2023. Brooks Lee, the second prospect to ever do it behind Joan Duran. And then a wild card, very bizarre, Jefferson Morales last year. Didn't even make it the season in Pro Ball. Got released by the Twins. But forever a Sire of Fort Myers. Anyway, let's talk about some of my favorites coming on in, starting off with the guys on the 40-man roster who do not have MLB time. We saw some of these guys play tonight against the Gophers. This is the whole crop of these guys. I'm going with Andrew Morris as my favorite because he was actually the finalist among pitchers last spring. So he's already contended for a Sire of Fort Myers in the past in 2025. So he's kind of my favorite among this crop in 2026. But I will say Marco Raya really made an early statement. He struck out the side tonight against the Gophers, looked good, got a bunch of swings and misses. Again, from the Gold baseball team. The best baseball team in the world. So Marco Raya, an early statement game. But those are all the guys currently on the 40-man roster who have not made their Major League debut yet. And then there are so many non-roster invitees that qualify for Sire Fort Myers. I couldn't possibly list them all. A lot of them were on that bullpen when we looked at the guys with bullpen experience, but I picked 5 pitchers and 5 hitters that qualify for Sire who that stood out to me. Again, like Jefferson Morales would have never made any kind of prognostication, so it could be anybody. I want to make that clear. But these were the 5 pitchers and the 5 hitters that stood out to me. And I'm going for my favorite among this class. I'm going with Kyler Fedko. A tremendous season between AA and AAA last season. A guy who probably has got a fire lit under him because he was eligible for the Rule 5 draft and the Twins did not protect him and he did not get selected after a tremendous, outstanding season in which he competed for Twins Minor League Hitter of the Year. So he's maybe feeling a little bit disrespected. He's mixed in at first base toward the end of last year. The Twins aren't extremely deep there. Also plays outfield, so I could see him getting a lot of playing time this spring. That's another thing that needs to be accounted for when forecasting early. Getting these betting odds to Vegas. I'm letting you guys in on this early. Vegas doesn't have their Sire Fort Myers lines out yet, so jump on this early. Again, Andrew Morris, I think, is a favorite because some of these pitchers are going to be participating in the World Baseball Classic. That's going to potentially open up more innings for a guy like Andrew Morris to pitch. Might even open up some more opportunities for a guy like Kyler Fedko or any of these other players. So, Fedko, obviously not the biggest prospect on this list. We've got Kalen Culpepper and Walker Jenkins and a bunch of other guys that we're going to see. But again, just kind of forecasting out and imagining things. Kyler Fedko is a guy who I would be very excited if he had a good spring too. That would be a fun storyline. But to be completely honest, I kind of started the Sire of Fort Myers thing to invent a reason to follow spring more closely, to be completely honest. Because there's so often these days that MLB teams, they're really aren't position battles. They're not figuring stuff out in spring so often. Even the Twins, not a big spending team. They typically in recent years have entered camp with very few debates on roster positions. Yes, injuries would open opportunities and things like that. But if you look in previous years, there were a few bench spots open. There were a few bullpen spots open. The rotations were fairly cemented. And that's more and more the case year after year. But honestly, I might spend a little less time invested in Sire Fort Myers. I realize it is the greatest honor in baseball. I realize this, but there is just so much to pay attention to in terms of position battles and how things are going to get sorted out this year. That's not necessarily a good thing. That means you have lots of questions, but it is going to make spring more interesting than usual. I think, we already talked about there was going to be a rotation battle, even if Pablo Lopez was in there, but now that's especially true, that there's going to be battling for rotation spots. That is going to impact the bullpen because, again, maybe somebody moves into the bullpen. There's so much to sort out in the bullpen. And, we haven't even talked about position players on this video. The Twins have 3 catchers right now, and all of them, they have to either carry or lose. Obviously, Ryan Jeffers and Victor Caratini are going to be on the team, but Alex Jackson, who's a catcher, is out of options. There's a bunch of other hitters that are out of options. The outfield is pretty open. What are they going to do with Alan Roden? What are they going to do with Austin Martin? There's just so much. Who's the backup shortstop? There is so much to sort out, and I don't think these are questions that are answered coming into spring here. I think spring is going to determine some of these position battles, which again, that seems like it's become more and more rare across all of baseball, as the last maybe decade or so, but it's especially true of the Twins the last handful of years. So this time around, definitely there's a lot to keep an eye on in spring. We'll certainly be bringing the Sire of Fort Myers. Absolutely, we will be discussing it, but might not go as full on, as quite nerdy as I have in some of the past years. So just heads up there. Thanks for checking this one out. Check out Limestone Pipeline. Jamie Cameron and I have just been hitting it hard the last 2 weeks. We unveiled our top 20 prospect list. Over 10,000 words written, comfortably over that mark. Over 80 minutes of audio recorded on our top 20. So check that out. $4 a month. You can just pay $4. Check out all of our prospect coverage and everything we've done since December. And hey, if that's all you want, you can drop it. There's no long-term commitment. We certainly hope you stick around, but if that's all you want, that's all you want. That's totally cool, but we think you'll like what you see there. So check that out. Thanks for checking this one out. Appreciate you. We'll talk again soon.